Hello everybody, it's Madison. I'm back with another video. This one is featuring some of the new Fawn release. And so initially I started off once again with kind of planning out my background. I'm using the Outside and Stitched Pumpkin die, the Stitched Pumpkin frame die, this Acorn house, and some Slimline dies that Fawn has. I cut out my background and my hillside from Bristol Smooth, and I cut out my birch trees from just regular white cardstock. And I'm cutting out my pumpkin pieces and, the little bits and stuff from just various other Micheals cardstocks. I'm using a lot of scrap because they're kind of tiny, and it's a good way to use up some of the leftover scraps we have. So, the cardstock I don't believe is that thick, which is kind of nice in this case because we will be layering lots of papers together. So I find having a paper that isn't like 100-pound weight is really nice because that way it'll layer and it won't be so dimensional and crazy high. So yeah. So I'm also taking these Acorn house bits and I'm cutting those out of green cardstocks as well, just in various shades to give them more interest. And I'm cutting out more of the floral pieces kind of, and like the door and the windows and stuff, to add to my pumpkin to make the pumpkin house. I was going to initially do the whole acorn house, but I thought a pumpkin would be more fall. Well, I mean it's still fall, but it would be cute, it'd be different. I have seen it done before, but I thought it'd be kind of neat for my little squirrels to live in a pumpkin. So I'm also taking this, I'm pretty sure we got this from the dollar store. It was like a brass reflective cardstock, and I'm using that for the window frames. For the windows, I thought that'd be neat. So here I am, I have my images already pre-cut or pre-colored and stamped. I had just colored them, off screen. If you want my color combinations for anything, just let me know. I'm more than happy to tell you them. But I have various color combos for all my squirrels to try to add more interest. And here I am just lining up the dies. And I'm going to be die cutting these bad boys. So, yeah. Next, I am working on my background. I have a whole bunch of Oxide inks here. I have Spiced Marmalade, Wild Honey, Mustard Seed, and Squeezed Lemonade. So I'm starting off with the Squeezed Lemonade closest to the horizon, or near the bottom. And I'm just working my way up in colors to go from yellow to orange and give it more of like an autumn sunset type of sky. I usually go for sunsets, but I thought this particular color combination would work really well with the fall theme that I have decided to run with for this card. So after I have the majority of my colors laid down, I am taking some water on just a clean paintbrush and I'm flicking some water onto the background to react with the water-based inks, and I'm blotting that off. And I'm also going to take my favorite Ganzai Tambi Starry watercolors. I use them in almost every video and almost every card because they're so pretty. And I'm taking a few of these gold shades here and I'm adding them to the background, just to add some variation and make it look really pretty, in my opinion. Next, I'm taking my hillside cut from Bristol Smooth, and I'm putting peeled paint near the top of the hill, and then I'm going to be adding the mowed lawn near the bottom, and then blending that out with more peeled paint to make it look a little less harsh because the mowed lawn is very green, and peeled paint is more of a brownish green, so I wanted to add some dimension to the hill, but I didn't want like two very contrasting colors that you can see here on my hill. So that is what I do. It's just with ink blending, it's just going back and forth until you like what you have. So yeah. After I had finished inking my hillside, I am taking vintage photo and I'm just smudging it on my mat and activating it with some water, and then I will be flicking that onto my hillside just to add more interest. I like the splatter look on a lot of my pieces just because it makes the background more interesting to the viewer, or the recipient, I suppose. So yeah. Next I am taking my birch trees, and they were pretty white, so I'm taking E43, W5, W2, and I'm just going over the notches of the trees, and then I will be blending out and coloring the entire birch tree with WOO, just so they aren't stark white and so they look more like birch trees. So next I am taking my door and I'm just tracing out the outline of it onto some white cardstock. This will be placed or glued behind the door, and I'm just going to cut that out. Here I am taking my door and window pieces that go behind the frames, and I am coloring them in with my Copic markers. You could do this with Oxides, but Copics was like the fastest way for me personally. So I'm using YR15, Y35, and Y15, and I'm just layering my markers and trying to blend them as nicely as possible. The colors kind of make it look like, you know, the warmth from the inside of the house. So next I'm taking the majority of the pieces that I had die cut for my pumpkin house, and I am just using a vintage photo around the edges to add more interest, and so they don't look as flat when I assemble the entirety of my house. With everything inked, I am ready to assemble my card base. So contrary to what I was doing, the first thing I'm gluing down to my card is gluing down my birch trees, and I am using the Fawn liquid glue pen. So yeah. Next, I am taking my hillside that I have glued down with the ATG gun, and I'm just lining that up, and then I'm cutting off the excess tree bits from the sides. So next, I am assembling my pumpkin house. I am gluing down the pumpkin frame onto the pumpkin, I suppose, first. And I'm using the Fawn liquid glue pen for that. I use it for the majority of this card. And I'm also gluing down the stem behind the pumpkin, and I'm using the ATG gun for that. Next, I am assembling my door and windows. So I am gluing my door to the backer piece, and I'm just only putting glue around the frame of the door, because it is interactive and you can open the door. So I don't want to glue the whole thing down because I want people to be able to open it. Next, I have this frame that I had cut out. What I did was I cut the entire door out of this brass cardstock and then just use a circle die to cut around the circle to kind of frame that window as well, make the card more cohesive. And I'm also gluing down the doorknob. Next, I'm also gluing those window frames to the window backs. And as you can see, they kind of match the door with the brass frames, so I thought that would look really nice. Next, I am just gluing down my pumpkin to the card base. I put it more on the left side just to kind of balance out everything I had going on my card already. And I'm gluing down I guess it's a doorstep that I have here. So I'm gluing that down where I would put my door. And then next I'll glue my door. And for that I am using the ATG gun because they are bigger pieces and because it'll just hold up a little bit nicer. So I ended up putting my door on a little crooked, but I just kind of left it there because it was so stuck. But it kind of adds more dimension to the pumpkin, or at least that's what I'm going to say about it instead of fixing it. Next, I am gluing down the foliage to my pumpkin house. Initially, what I do is I lay out all these pieces that I have, and then once I like what I have, I will commit to it and glue it all down with my Lawn Fawn liquid glue pen. So here I'm just laying everything out and fiddling with the background, and then I'm just gonna go ahead and glue it all down. I used some of the pieces from the house, the Acorn house die set, and I put them behind the hill just because I had them cut out and I didn't think I really liked them around the house itself. I thought they looked neater in the background, so just thought I'd note that. So with the majority of everything done, I just need to add my squirrels. So once again, I laid out what I liked, and then I will just be gluing them down. I am using a mixture of the liquid glue pen as well as some thin foam squares, just to add some more dimension to certain areas. As you can see here, I'm gluing one of my squirrels onto the inside of the house as a surprise for the recipient for when they open the little pumpkin door. So that's pretty cool. But yeah, for various squirrels in the foreground, I'm popping them up, and the ones that are more in the back, I'm just going to glue down with glue. Alright, so to finish off the majority of this card, I am gluing it to a card base. It is cut to the size that I needed. I believe it was 8.5 by 7. So, and then you score it at 3.5. And I'm just going to glue my card onto the base with my ATG gun. So I would recommend stamping on the inside of your card base prior to doing this. I did not. It can be a little cumbersome, but it's not the end of the world. Just, if you're doing this, stamp on the inside first. It makes it so much easier. So I am stamping out the sentiment from the Let's Go Nuts stamp set, and I'm using crushed leaf ink from Lawn Fawn. so that'd be more tone on tone and fit the fall theme. So off screen, what I did was I added detail with my gel pens. It's usually the sparkle, the white, and the black glaze. And then here I am just adding some of these, I believe they're from Studio Katja. They are just golden like sequins. So I'm just adding an odd amount to the card just to add more interest, and just they look really pretty. So yeah. And then that's about it for the card. So yeah, if you have any questions, feel free to ask. I have everything I've used, almost everything in the description, as well as my Instagram, if you would like to follow that. You can also support me by subscribing, liking the video, commenting, sharing with friends. It's all a good way to support me in the channel, and I appreciate it. Thank you so much for watching, and have a good day.